At some point, we have to stop pretending we can ignore what's already been proven to work. Science, research, and repeatable practices exist for a reason, not to limit you, but to help you grow faster and with less unnecessary struggle. Too often, people dismiss what they don't understand because it feels intimidating. Too many big words, right? Unfamiliar or even inconvenient. Instead of learning, they avoid. Instead of asking questions, they opt out. Just disconnect. But improvement in any area of life requires a willingness to engage with information that challenges you. Growth demands curiosity. If you want a better life, better decisions, better outcomes, you have to build an internal desire to learn. You have to read. You have to listen. You have to study, especially when it feels uncomfortable. Fear of the unknown doesn't protect you, it keeps you stuck. Learning is how you move forward on purpose. I promise. So, it does matter that you understand how things work. Early in my own life, I recognized something important. People's struggles don't just land in their laps. Patterns don't happen by accident. Behavior isn't random. There is always a reason behind what's happening. God's hand is always there to guide us. And scientific understanding makes us wiser. You would think we'd want to understand how our own brain works, but most people don't. It's scary. It's too complex. There's so many big words. It's uncomfortable. Or maybe you just don't want to hear anything that challenges how you already think. But when you understand it, kind of the scariness gets rubbed away. When you know how the brain actually works, growth stops feeling so mysterious and starts feeling doable. Most people approach personal growth with way too much emotion. They want to try harder. They want to stay motivated. They want to push through the comfort. And when change doesn't stick, they assume something is wrong with them. Psychology will tell you a different story. Lasting change rarely comes from your effort alone. It comes from understanding how the behavior is formed and then reinforced and then changed. When you understand what's happening underneath your thoughts and actions, problems stop feeling so personal. They become patterns, and patterns can be studied, adjusted, worked with. That shift from judgment to curiosity is what makes change sustainable. I promise nothing really works until you understand the system, and we all have them. I've seen this lesson repeat across every field I've studied. As an engineer, my first career, when I worked in a corporate environment, specifically as an industrial engineer, my job was to analyze how people did their work, from the factory floor into offices, and to always be looking for ways to improve performance. I looked at task, execution, handoffs, efficiencies, cost, and quality. And what always stood out was the very few people that I worked with wanted to understand how their role fit into the bigger and larger system, because most of them didn't want to change, as long as they could keep doing what they were already doing. Then I taught high school science, the hard sciences, chemistry, physics, forensic science. And to me, it was never about memorizing equations, and there's many of them, right? It was about how students could make and understand the relevance of it in their daily life. Once you can understand it and see how it works around you, then the application is there. And when you can apply things that you know, then you can create confidence in yourself. And then psychology for me tied it all together. When I studied that and understood that behavior doesn't change because people feel bad enough, it changes when you understand why it's happening in the first place. What is the root cause? At some point, you have to decide that staying uninformed is no longer an option. You don't grow by avoiding what challenges you. You don't improve by dismissing what you don't yet understand. Science, research, and proven practices exist because they work, whether you feel ready for them or not. And let's be honest here, if it were easy, I wouldn't need to make a video like this, right? And you wouldn't need it. But if you're serious about addressing the root issues that keep you stuck, maybe even miserable, you have to want to understand how change actually works. So here are a few examples you can internalize. 1. The psychological roadblocks that we experience show you where change should start. Many emotional struggles come from what psychology calls cognitive distortions, predictable thinking patterns that quietly shape how we interpret situations. Emotions are driven less by what happens to us and more by how we interpret what happens. A small mistake becomes, oh my goodness, I always think mess things up. I do. I can't do anything right? Or an awkward moment becomes, people just think I'm incompetent. I must be stupid. And a setback becomes, well, I don't even know why I'm trying. This will never work. And that's really not reality talking. That's a psychological roadblock. Science shows that simply identifying these patterns, knowing what they are, reduces their emotional intensity. Your awareness interrupts the loop. Instead of forcing positive thinking, you learn where your thinking starts to break down. That's where lasting change actually starts, and there's nothing wrong with understanding that. When you stop automatically believing every single thought you have, you actually gain options, and options are where your growth begins. Self-awareness here is critical. Also, okay, let's look at something else. Neuroplasticity explains in your brain why change requires practice. So your brains are wired. We've wired them over life, right? Many people understand their patterns and still repeat them. That's not a discipline problem. Neuroplasticity explains why. The brain rewires based on repetition, not intention. If you're doing something wrong over and over again, it's going to be retained that way in your brain. It strengthens the pathways you use most often. That's why people say, I know better, but I still don't do it. Short bursts of motivation don't change your brain. Small repeated actions do. Science-based growth removes urgency and replaces it with a strategy. Practice shouldn't feel like punishment. When you connect it to relief, less stress, clear thinking, better decisions, more self-trust start to rise to the top. You don't practice because you're broken. You practice because you felt the difference when you do. A third thing to think about is your habit loop, right? Habits do exist on loops, explains actually why your willpower fails, okay? Think about this. Most behaviors follow this loop. You get a cue, you do some behavior, and then there's some sort of reward. It's not a random thing. Your behavior isn't. It's serving a specific purpose. Procrastination provides relief. People-pleasing provides certainty. Avoidance provides comfort. When you try to eliminate a behavior without understanding the reward, the brain resists it. Because from the brain's perspective, the behavior is helping you. That's what it's been led to believe. Science-based growth doesn't fight the system. It redesigns it. When the reward is identified, the behavior can be replaced instead of resisted. Right? Because sometimes it can feel like a battle. That's why books like The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg and Atomic Habits by James Clear matters so much. Great reads. They explain why change is hard and how to make it easier. Change isn't fast, it isn't always easy, but it is possible. When you work with how the brain actually functions, you'll be amazed at what you can do. And finally, here's what I really want you to understand clearly. The answers are not missing. They already exist. Human behavior has been studied far more than most people realize. When you understand behavior, shame loses its grip. When curiosity replaces judgment, consistency becomes possible. Growth stops feeling personal and mysterious and starts becoming practical. It's not a character flaw. It's not a personality issue. Insight alone won't change you. Action without understanding often reinforces the wrong pattern. Real growth lives in the middle. Understand what's happening, apply small intentional changes, and repeat. And repeat. And repeat. Long enough for your brain to adapt. Motivation comes and goes, methods endure, and the people who change their lives aren't the ones with better willpower. They're the ones willing to learn how change actually works.